Oh, sorry, never mind. He's not here today.
All right, hi guys. Welcome to our week 2 class for TV pilot writing. Hopefully you got to come to at least the week 0 or the week 1 classes, so you got some early feedback. You know what the basics of your show idea are, and you filled out that sketchbook as much as you can in the time that we had. So you're going to open up that sketchbook and keep that open during every class and continue to fill that out with ideas for moments in the story, characters, lines of dialogue, scenes, things like that, and questions you have. You're going to work out an early version of your story beats in that one today as we are going through the slideshow on structure. So today is mostly about structure and how to start arranging that raw material, the sand that you shoveled into the sandbox. Now you have to start actually figuring out what the basic shapes of that story are going to be. So upcoming stuff, we have Feature Bootcamp Week 1, Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Writing Sci-Fi, that's also Sunday at 1 p.m. Copyright for Screenwriters, May 7th at 5. So that's 3 classes on this upcoming Sunday. That's the day after tomorrow. We have Better Dialogue, so a dialogue workshop, May 11th at 6 p.m. Scene workshop, May 14th at 1. And a class on monsters and villains, May 14th at 5. We'll have new fiction writing classes coming soon. Here's the current schedule for the boot camps. We have Novel Bootcamp running 12 to 2 on Saturdays. That's going to keep going for, I think, 4 more weeks, and we'll have new ones starting in June. We have TV Pilot, that's this one, running this time slot, Fridays 6 to 8 for the next 5 weeks. And we have Feature Bootcamp, which I already mentioned. So, obviously, I think everyone here is already enrolled, but if you still need to, or if you know someone who might need to, you can do that at scriptcamp.net/membership, where you can sign up for your free trial or get your yearly subscription. If you have a friend that you refer, they will get a free month. You will both get a free month of unlimited if they sign up and they persist past their free trial. Okay, so here's where we are. We are at week 5. Your goal for this, the end of this week, is to try to complete that story beat summary, which is just the major events of your story and the rough order that they need to go in. So we're going to have to go into what each of those moments are intended for and how these sort of sections of our 3-act story are intended to feel, and what goals are we trying to accomplish in these sections. And, of course, trying to fill that out as best we can by next week, at which point we're going to move to expand what we have into scene cards, which is a full paragraph for every scene, along with a page estimate of where that's, like what pages that scene will fall upon, to help you diagnose your pacing. From then on, we're going to start pages. So we're starting pages May 19th. That's 2 weeks from today. So you're starting script 2 weeks from today. You have these next 2 weeks to figure out what happens on every page. That's the goal. Okay, and if you want to get more comprehensive notes, of course, check out the website, scriptcamp.net/coverage. You can get things like consultations, development sessions, editing, all that good stuff. All right, so pilot finished in 6 weeks. Again, don't worry about this being too good. If it's your first couple scripts, it's not going to be good, and we must either accept that everything, we're going to have to either come back to the script later to make it really good once we've gained more skills, or you could just approach this as, I'm trying to write scripts that don't need to be very good so I can work up my skills and eventually write those scripts that are very dear and near to my heart, or things like that. So don't worry about any individual script being that good, and definitely don't let that hold you back from reading, writing, and finishing things, which are, again, the only steps that you need to be taking. So we'll start with check-in on everyone. We'll ask, where are you in your projects? Hopefully you've filled out that sketchbook, you have a finalized logline at this point, and you're ready to move ahead into story beats, though you can let us know if you're especially behind or have some problem with that. And we're going to ask also, just what have you read this week? We're going to ask this every single week, and you should be reading pilots if you want to be in the pilot writing course. So 1 brand new pilot every single week. It can be half an hour or it can be full hour. It doesn't take way too long to read a half-hour script, so you should be able to find some time for this. So I'm going to go through alphabetically, and that's just straight down the voice chat list, and ask everyone where they are at and what they've read. Then in the class itself, we will look at the whole process, the overview, which we've gone over a little bit before, but we'll have a recap on the whole trajectory of this. Then we can move into structure, breaking a story, half-hour and full-hour structure. What is the difference between those two, and how do they look on the outline? Example story beats we can look at as well to sort of get a sense of what this document that we're trying to make would ideally look like, and how it would be organized, and what tools we're going to use on the page to make it easy to navigate and easy to read. And we'll move ahead into perhaps exercises, and we'll have lots of time for questions. All right, so if you want, you can post your log lines in the assignments channel. If you're perfectly happy with them and think they're totally fine and don't think they need any review, then you don't need to. But this would be a good chance to post those if you feel that they still need work or you still have questions about them. You can post your sketchbook if you really want to. I don't usually review sketchbooks. There's not really like right or wrong things to include in those. And then, of course, we're going to ask, did you read that recent pilot script? So I would be just prepared to say something about it. It's not a quiz, but just what did you read? What did you like? What did you learn? Okay, let's go straight down the list. We will start with Joel. Give us an update, Joel.
Hi. I'm just sort of here to listen in, because it's getting late for me in my time zone. I haven't read a pilot this week. I did start reading, Skyfall, and, I think I'm on page 25. But yeah, I was hooked from half a page in, just the way it was written, and I think Skyfall is one of my favourite Bond films anyway, so that helped, but yeah, I was just completely sucked in from the first page. Sorry, I forgot what it was. Oh, as for my logline, I've had some feedback on it, but I will get feedback on it, I think, when I've finished the pilot, just because I feel like the loglines are, satisfactory, but my story is still changing a bit as I write it. I'm still trying to figure things out. Oh, so yeah, this isn't a brand new pilot. This is a pilot I've been writing forever. And yeah, so I will post my logline when my pilot is, at the very least, almost finished. Just because I've had so much feedback on it already. And I was just thinking to myself, I've always been a bit of a pantser, sort of. I feel like, for me at least, whenever I plan anything, whether it's writing or not, the spontaneity just seems to go. And I enjoy that spontaneity and that, fluidity. And not knowing where it's going to go next. Which is why I've never really had a finished sketchbook or anything like that.
Have you finished a script?
That's where I'm at the moment. No, not yet.
Okay, so we can't exactly say that the pantsing method is working then. In that case, is just how I would kind of look at that. I mean, if the tactic you're using isn't resulting in finished scripts, go ahead.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's just that. I mean, maybe partially, but screenwriting's always been a secondary hobby for me. And it's, over all the time I've been working on it, it's always been near the bottom of the priority list. Which is why it's not being done yet. I'm trying to move it up, but life happens.
Sure.
So yeah. But yeah, so that, I think that's the real reason why I've still not finished it. Also, when I first came up with the idea, I was 11 years old, and now that I'm 20, my tastes have changed a lot, and the kind of things that I'm writing. Initially, it started off being a straight up copy of Power Rangers, and now it's a lot darker and a lot got more adult themes and more violence and stuff like that. So the whole format and just everything about the show has changed over the 4 or so years I've been writing it. So yeah.
All right. Thanks for the update, Joel. Let's check in with Judea.
Hello.
Hi. How's everything going?
Okay. Everything's going pretty good. I have been reading scripts, but I've also just been generally studying through a channel I found, which, talks about the Pixar method and interviews Pixar peoples and and looks over their scripts and stuff. But I have started reading Luca, which I need to finish. So basically, I've just been doing feature things right now, but I want to work on shorts and TV pilots. That's the thing I want to do. I've just been learning a few things over the past week, and I need to, and I'm learning about how I learn. I am learning how I learn, and it is going okay.
Okay, that's worth doing. Did you have a logline for? Are you writing a pilot with this program, or are you just following along?
I am following along. I kind of just want to work asynchronously because I'm bad at following the group.
Okay.
Sorry.
I see. All right. So did you have a logline that you wanted to get feedback on, or are you saying that you didn't have a project that you were doing for the class?
I do have a project I'm doing. It's just that uh you've seen it before, and since then I haven't really done too much to the logline.
Okay.
It was the MMORPG one, and I haven't fixed up the logline yet. I still need to plan out what I'm doing.
Okay. I understand. Thanks for the updates.
Mhm.
Let's check with Pollock. Hi, Pollock. Can you tell us where you are in your project? How's everything going?
Well, I tried to write the project, which is very weird because I haven't gotten the scenes yet. And also, I read Game of Thrones, the
Great.
first pilot episode.
Okay.
Didn't finish it, but I read it. I
Okay.
read a bit of Astoria too.
Okay. Anything you noticed or learned from reading those? Are you still there?
Yeah. They're so much better than me. Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Anything you.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Okay. There might just be a delay. I think I'm hearing. It just might be a few seconds before the voice is coming through for some reason. But yeah. Anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah, it's probably a delay.
Wow, that is a long
Yeah.
delay.
I tried writing my script, but yeah, my log line as well.
You tried writing the script in logline. Okay, what happened? How far did you get? Do you want to tell us an update?
Let's see. Let me check. I think I got like 6 to 7 pages in. Let me check.
Okay, and without having a finished outline, you're saying?
I was saying I got like 6 to 7 pages in, I think. I'm checking right now.
Okay, well, it might be helpful to finish your outline before you go any further, just so that you don't kind of overcomplicate things or make it into a big problem to sort out the pacing and plotting later on. So I'd recommend probably pausing where you are and finishing story beats, then scene cards, and then moving to pages.
All right. I'll pause where I am.
Okay, that would be my suggestion. Thank you for the update, Pollock.
All right, that's good.
All right, let's hear from
Right.
Taylor.
Hey, yeah, so this week I read the pilot for Ozark. I'd never watched Ozark before, so I read it and just started getting into it, finished the first season. So I guess what I learned from the pilot script was really escalating conflict. It really spins out of control in a really fun way. And so I was able to take some lessons just about, I guess keeping it fairly simple. Like, it's not overly complex within the money laundering stuff. And they do a pretty solid job of doing some exposition to explain that. But they don't overcomplicate it. And then, yeah, just the escalating conflict is great. And then I read this spec pilot I found on Coverfly called How About Them Cowboys. It's a really fun premise. It's basically a guy sees the Dallas Cowboys are for sale. He's like a wealthy oil tycoon that's an alcoholic, and ends up buying the Dallas Cowboys. It was pretty fun, but I mean, I guess I learned like a negative lesson from that one. the guy buys the Dallas Cowboys for $40 million, and they're worth that team's worth billions, and so it's like just one of those things that like the entire time I'm reading this that I'm like, that was a really quick piece of research and probably wouldn't have to change too much with it. But yeah, just something like that. Whereas like, yeah, if you know, I guess if it's something really easy to just bend the truth on, like a little bit, go for it. But it's like something super obvious, and then you're bending it like billions of dollars. I don't know. Kind of took me out of it.
So what's the conflict in that story? A guy buys a sports team, and then what?
Him and his old friends, they're all alcoholics, decide they are going to coach the team. It's basically, I would say, like Ted Lasso with Always Sunny type of vibe to it. Kind of like that old Eastbound and Down show kind of humor. The conflict, like really, like you don't get to see much of that conflict. He doesn't buy the team until towards the end of the script, and then it goes from there. But yeah, it was okay. Maybe worth a read, but I mean, I took a lesson from it at the minimum. So
Yeah.
And then where I'm at on my pilot, I think it's going in the right direction. I have like a handful of log lines I've written for it. I have a lot, like basically my sketchbook, like a huge just section of ideas. I've outlined the first 2 acts, and then I have a pretty rough roadmap of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th acts, so I kind of know where it's going. But I have detailed outline for the first 2 acts, and then a handful of ideas and story beats to start working off of.
Okay, great. Remind me, what was your show?
It is about a mother who is in the middle of a custody battle, and her brother is like a card shark in Las Vegas. He works for a production team that does a live stream of a poker show, and she convinces him to help her cheat so she can afford an expensive lawyer to fight this custody battle.
That's right. Okay, it's the sort of suburban mom becomes card swindler type story, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Got it. I totally get it. I think you're in good shape. I don't remember the log lines exactly, but I think I already gave feedback on them, so you probably have a good sense of how to move forward. Yeah, it seems like you're in a good place, and nice job doing reading and actually having comments to say about it. Reading is so important, and you got to do it. you got to do the reading.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Taylor.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, Nacho, any updates you want to give us?
I read the pilot by Lee, who took this bootcamp last session.
Yeah, I know. Lee.
And yeah, it was pretty good. It's about a deity, a water deity who is working as a freelance plumber, and it's kind of from the point of view of his apprentice, who's just sort of naive and learning the ropes. Yeah, it was a lot of cool things that I enjoyed about it.
Great. Okay, cool. And what about your own projects?
So yeah, I'm not working on a TV pilot at the moment, just sitting in and absorbing. I do have a couple pilot projects that I want to do probably, after finishing like the next feature. And then I'm gonna, I definitely want to at least finish one pilot this year.
Cool. Yeah, you're in the middle of a feature right now. Is that right?
Close to finishing the draft and working on some, kind of like synopsis and documents to submit to Sundance Lab.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just was writing out my stuff for that today, filling out the artistic statement and the bio and all the little things you're supposed to write up for that. So we will see. But since you have vouched for it, I feel it's worth entering. Okay, so let's move forward into I was going to see if anyone needed an additional look at the logline. Nobody mentioned that they did, so we will just move ahead unless somebody brings me back to that. But here's the overview of the entire process. This is logline, sketchbook, story beats, scene cards, go to pages. That's no matter what we're writing, that's always the order, and I would not recommend typically shifting this around and jumping ahead, because then you might end up on sort of shaky footing. So let's go into structure, which is going to probably start with this slide here. Okay, so you can always change things as you're writing the story, but try to generally stick to the structure that you've created for yourself, the outline you've made, and because especially if you're working with other people, you want to be a TV writer, you have to be able to deliver what you said you would deliver, or else it's going to throw off the highly complex collaborative series of documents that you are creating as a staff. So you got to kind of do what's in the outline, or try to get better at that. But in any case, you will just have to discover some stuff in the process of writing the script, and it could be that we mentioned a couple days ago in a class that someone was having trouble finding that sort of sense of spontaneous creation and fun in the scenes. That may be that you have to just pull back a little bit in the specificity of your scene cards and just say, like, somebody gets hurt, and then that could mean almost whatever you need it to mean. They get hit by a car, they step on a nail, whatever it is. Like, you may find that if you just don't exactly spell out how something occurs in your scene cards, then that may help you maintain that sort of spontaneous creation. But usually I found you can pick something and then maybe change it on the spot if you need to, or if you think of something better. Okay, so two different structure setups that we're looking at. We're looking at half hour and we're looking at full hour, but they have the same beats. It's just kind of how they're spaced out. 3-act structure is always going to look pretty much the same, no matter in different worldwide perspectives have different approaches to this, and different cultures have their own versions of this and everything like that. But ultimately, you are going to have the same kind of stuff every time. So we have Act 1, which is sort of your introduction, where we come to know the characters, figure out what the problem is, and we're going to move them towards the sort of promise of the story, which is that journey through the doorway into Act 2, which is going to represent this kind of upside-down, topsy-turvy world where your main character is... Maybe they are doing their job or something like that is routine to them, but in any case, this is a job of theirs that has an elevated sense of importance. If this is cops trying to track down a killer, well, this is a particularly bad or noteworthy killer, or else why did we make this an episode about it? Or if this is a sort of longer journey that your characters need to start, then that break into 2 is going to be moving them across, further along their grander trajectory that's going to carry them through the whole series. So it may be that your break into 2 is really kind of the inciting incident for the entire show moving forward. So once we move into Act 2, that's where we are moving from introduction into confrontation. So this is going to be the promise of the premise. So you have to look at the promises that you've made and set up in everything from your genre to your title to your kind of imaginary poster or trailer that you might have had to just your pitch. Your logline is going to include these sets of promises and the things that the audience will be excited about and expecting to see. And you're going to have to start delivering on that right away in the premise scenes, which is the longest and most substantial section of your script, because we say Act 2 is the movie, Act 2 is the pilot, Act 2 is the book. So really fill up Act 2 with all the good stuff that you kind of thought the audience would be coming here hoping to see. And we want to kind of engage with that core premise and explore it to its, as much potential as, whatever extent of its potential that we can in this sequence here. We're leading up to the midpoint, which is a section, might give us a kind of a breath for a moment, a breather. It might be an introduction of some new clue that changes the direction of the story, but regardless of what it is, it's going to be something that raises the stakes and is going to kind of remind us of the urgency of this journey and kind of push a ticking clock forward, or start a new ticking clock if there is a ticking clock that kind of dissipated or concluded at the midpoint. So it's a great place to introduce a new ticking clock that's going to continue to add pressure on your characters moving forward, and is going to be moving them inexorably towards this grand finale. So we're moving through escalation, hitting them with various difficulties and costs as a result of their journey, until we hit that all is lost moment where it seems like they could not possibly succeed after this has happened, at which point they fall into the pit of despair, where it seems they have to now live in this world of, oh, I failed at my mission, even if it was just a small problem that only came up in this episode. I can no longer succeed at that. I got in a fight with my friend, and now I have to suffer the consequences of whatever it is that I've sort of failed to learn over the course of this episode, until we move towards that break into 3, which is going to be that moment of realization and reconciliation, where the classic sitcom style, we have one character say, I'm sorry because I was too controlling. The other character says, I'm sorry because I was too emotional. And then they hug and make up, and then they can approach the finale with their powers combined, having learned something from this journey, or having acknowledged what they have failed to learn up until now, and maybe they will have changed in some small, incremental, gradual way. As we approach that finale, we should be moving into it with a lot of energy and momentum, and it should be some kind of conflict that tops all the ones we've seen so far, and ultimately ends up wrapping up the major problem of this episode. And then we slide into the epilogue or stinger, which are these last couple pages at the end, where we sort of want to give a sense of what does next episode, what does the season have for our heroes, what does the next episode have, where's the story going from here, or it could be sort of resetting things back to normal, and if it's more of a status quo show, it might just be a moment where we see some of the fan favorite characters just doing something funny or doing something charming, something to leave us on a note that is of the emotional promise that you made. So something that we're laughing on if it's a comedy, something, whatever emotional appeal your show has, leave us on that with the last couple moments of the show. Okay, so that's just a broad overview of structure, and we can go more into the specific timing of these moments or what exactly they mean, but I want to just maybe pause at the beginning to see if anyone has any big questions on this, or maybe some points that they have struggled to understand in the past, or something that you'd like to hear more about before we go any deeper. So let me just open the floor really quick. Anything you guys would like to ask or hear about specifically?
Yeah, I want to know, when we had, maybe you're getting to this. 60-minute pilot, 5 acts. Roughly, oh, perfect. Great, I'll screenshot that, thank you.
Sure. I'll just link you the slides, and you can just access the show whenever you want.
Cool.
There you go. Did you have a question?
Nope. That basically, I want to know, I figured it would probably be separated into 12-page segments, so that was really what I was going to ask, so thank you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so half-hour pilot, we have 10-page acts. Hour-long pilot, we have 12-page acts. You have 60 to 65 pages for hour-long, 30 to 35 pages for half-hour, so that gives you can mix up the cold open and the stinger however you want. You could do 3 pages and 2 pages, you could do 1 and 4, you can do 4 and 1. I would probably recommend your stinger be shorter than your cold open, but there's rare exceptions to that. That doesn't always have to be the case. And the thing about these is that this is not a super, super, super rigid structure. You might see some shows where the break into 3 is really more at the actual break into 3, in which case the all is lost might have happened a little earlier, towards the end of Act 2, for instance, and then the Pit of Despair brings us up to that last act break or something like that. You might see other versions of this that also work, and the area where it gets really funky is the transition from Act 2 to 3 in half hour, and from 4 to 5 in full hour. You'll see a lot of variance there, so don't take this as the gospel of what it always has to look like, but this just is a formula that works well with the structure. Okay, so should I go through step by step, or it seemed like you guys didn't have any area of focus that you wanted me to look at in particular, or things that you were confused about, so should I just go linearly straight through, I suppose? Anyone can feel free to weigh in. No opinions. Okay, I'm just going to go straight through then. So we're starting with cold open. This is the first few pages of the script. Do you have to have a cold open? No, you do not need to have one at all. You can just start the story. But in any case, this might be a teaser of what's going to happen, or it might be a short scene to set the tone of the show. Often it should end with this emotional effect that you're going for, because that is sort of setting the promise that this is the appeal the entire show is going to have. This is the kind of fun that you have shown up for. So if it's a comedy, what is the last moment of your cold open?
Hopefully there's a laugh involved.
Yes, something that the audience will laugh at. A joke, a laugh line of some variety. Yes, okay. What if it's an action-adventure show? What would be a good way to handle the cold open with that? Or a way you've seen before?
I want to see somebody swinging on a whip into a tomb, or some kind of action adventure type thing that's going to set the tone of what I'm expecting, right? Because I think I don't know if this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a lot of genre shows, there is a lot of the introducing the world, the normal world or whatever, where we don't get the genre stuff. So I've seen in a lot of like pilot scripts where the cold open is sometimes not even the main character, but it's at least something that just gives you that, that fix of the genre flavor that you're looking for. Especially when we're going to have another 10 or 15 pages where there's no monsters or whatever the hell the genre is.
And that's why opening on the villain works so well in these subgenres, and you'll see this in tons of superhero stories. We start on the villain because then it allows us to jump right into, in medias res, in the middle of some kind of action-y situation where we can understand, okay, we're going to see a little piece of the villain's plan, or we'll get a little hint as to who they are or what they're capable of, and then we're able to go to your hero who doesn't know anything about that yet. So that just makes a nice style of opening in this kind of story. Somebody give me another genre and tell me what would the cold open probably be like, or what would be a cold open you've seen before that works well in that genre.
Dramas. I think Breaking Bad and Lost are two of the best at cold opens in that genre. I mean, Breaking Bad, the pilot, I just pulled that up to try to remember exactly how it happened, but it's that kind of flash forward of him doing his first batch of meth, and he starts calling, I think he calls 911 to report himself, and then pulls out a gun, and then it cuts and we see everything leading up to that. Lost had a ton of them that just always, kept, after you watched it, you're like, okay, I'll sit through the next commercial break for this.
Right. So yeah, the Breaking Bad opens with him recording the confession on the video camera, and he's saying, "My name is Walter White, and I've done some really bad stuff." Essentially, sort of setting a promise for okay, if we keep watching, we're going to answer the question of what did he actually do? What is this guy up to? And why is he clearly willing to start a shootout with the cops over it? So we come to see that, okay, that our patience will be rewarded by learning the answer to those questions. That's how almost any cold open can work. But dramas especially like to, if it doesn't matter if it's a mystery show or if it's not, having some kind of question that we need to keep watching to find out the answer is just a really good opening hook. Yeah, we're looking for that opening hook. Someone else, tell me another genre and tell me what the cold open should do. Someone who talked before can go again if they want.
Medical mystery of the week, murder of the week. You're going to see somebody fall, collapse with some kind of medical problem that we don't know what it is, or murder of the week, a body, right? That's what we're going to be, dealing with this week.
Yeah, so procedural problem of the week. In the cold open, we introduce the problem of the week. Exactly, yes. For 100%, that is exactly what we're doing. So if that requires some setup, like we see somebody get murdered, or we see a crime occur, or we see something get stolen, or something like that, it's basically you're showing us the events that lead to this week's particular problem that is also going to be resolved by the end. Okay, does anyone else have any other? Nobody wants to mention horror or sci-fi or any of these other... I feel like you guys are writing a bunch of different genres. Can we do one more? What would a horror show opening do?
Maybe somebody killing someone.
Okay.
Graphically.
Why?
Because it's a horror show.
Uh-huh. So what are we doing by showing that?
Basically showing that there is gore, there's going to be death, and showing us the monster or whoever is going to be the monster of that particular movie or feature or script or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. So we might be getting a glimpse of the creature or the monster or whatever it is. We have that element of introducing the mystery of what is this thing or who is the killer, something like that. But we don't learn all the answers right away. We're going to have to keep watching to find out. And then, yeah, you're right. We're also setting the tone. We're saying this is the kind of action you can expect in the rest of the show. If there's blood and gore in the opening scene, you can expect it all throughout.
Yeah, just to add on to horror, I think openings can usually be used to really raise stakes for the rest of the pilot or feature.
You
know,
mean
just
set,
to go
set
up...
the stakes, right? Because we can't raise them if they haven't been.
Oh, yeah,
if
yeah.
we're just starting,
set
right? So we're setting stakes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Set the stakes, or, you know, in future episodes, like later on, raising them even further than they are. But generally, yeah, in a pilot, you're really setting the stakes of what the danger that these people are going to be facing.
Yeah. What kind of problem are we going to be dealing with? How bad is this thing actually going to be? Is the world in trouble, or is this like is someone being possessed by something? Or yeah, we're setting up the problem of the week. Okay, good answers. So yeah, we might start with this sort of standalone kind of scene, which might sort of be this is mostly something for later episodes in the show. I wouldn't probably start with a entirely standalone story that is not linked to the rest of the show in a pilot. So usually we're going to be doing either one of two things. Excuse me. The setup, which is going to be watching those first important incidents that are going to make this episode story happen. We have this teaser style opening, which I don't really recommend you lean too heavily on. If you're doing the sort of thing that we mentioned, the Breaking Bad kind of made everyone do for a while. It's just really overdone at this point to show something that's interesting and exciting that's going to happen later. But we say, before this, though, this is what happened to lead up to that. It's just kind of become a huge cliche. Basically, we're trying to set up whatever that problem of the week is going to be, or we're going to give a hint as to what the major action of the show is going to revolve around, and we're going to set the tone. So we're going to hook the reader, so remember to try to usually open on a scene of a character trying to accomplish a goal that ends in an unexpected way. That's just a nice kind of rule of thumb. Every scene, not just the cold open, but conflict scenes are going to be based on a character has a goal, something standing in the way. They attempt tactics to overcome that goal, or to overcome that problem. They succeed or they fail, and that pushes them closer to or further from their ultimate goal. So by having a well-written logline, you will already kind of know where some things need to fall in your structure, and as you're writing things out, let's make sure. I'm hearing some sound coming through somebody's mic, so just everybody make sure to click the mute button next to your mic, the little gray microphone in the bottom left corner. So your logline already has some key information, because assuming your logline's working well and everything is where it should be, you already know where a couple things should go. Okay, I'm going to have to server mute somebody in a moment. Thank you, Nacho. Or Joel, whoever did that. So our logline tells us when or after inciting incident. Well, there's your catalyst, and we already know where that's going to kind of fall into place, because that looks like on a 30-minute pilot, around page 5, on an hour-long pilot, maybe 7 to 10-ish. It might be more like sort of towards the end of your first act in an hour-long pilot. Sometimes it's kind of like a little cliffhanger at the end of the first act, and then we move immediately into trying the locks or something like that. But don't worry way too much about that. In any case, it should happen in your first act. So that's what we have that. We have when or after that occurs. We have an adjective protagonist, and that's usually going to be what you set up in your intro section. So throughout the first act, we are setting up that kind of person. So we're going to see examples of them being like that as they live their normal life, whatever that means, whatever their normal is. Must conflict, that's going to tell us what is Act 2. What are the premise scenes? That's right in the middle. After we break into 2, your character must now attempt this particular course of action to reach their goal. And before or else stakes. That's kind of telling us what is the all is lost moment, because at the all is lost, that is when either your character fails at their goal, or it seems now that they are on the verge of failing, now that something has happened that is going to kind of make success impossible. Okay, so by having that really well-written logline, it will be much easier to just start on story beats, because you can put down, 4 or 5 things on the board right away. So you know now what you're going to be working back and forth from. You're going to be connecting the dots and reverse engineering to fill out the entire pilot from there. But it's good to have, by having a well-written logline, you'll have all the major kind of cornerstones of the story. Any questions about that? Okay, no questions. So, I want to, I could pause, I guess I just paused for questions, so I don't need to again. I just want to make sure everyone understands all the different story beats and what they're supposed to be doing in these different sections. Maybe I'll kind of go down the list or something like that and just check with everyone to ask, do you feel you have a strong understanding of story structure? If yes, you can just say yes and I'll move right to the next person. All right, let's start with Dan. Dan, any questions about story structure? Do you feel like you have a good handle on this? Are you there, Dan? Okay, we'll come back to Dan. We'll move. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, I was listening and then I had to run out of the room. What was the question?
Do you feel you have a good sense of how story structure works? Do you have any major questions about it?
I do not. I remember from a lot of this from last time still.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, if you feel you have a strong sense, no need to waste any more time, so we'll move right on. Thank you, Dan. Let's ask Joel. What do you think?
I don't think I have any questions at this point. I think where I'm at in my pilot is, I think I'm about midpoint, and I'm not sure where to go after the midpoint.
Okay, so what's your all is lost?
I'm not sure at the moment. I think.
So this.
I think
So
I'm
do you
going
have a
to
log line? Because
restructure
right. Go ahead.
I'm gonna have to restructure my pilot, because when I first started writing it, but I've learned a lot since about structure and other things since I first started. So I'm gonna have to really restructure it.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. So once you go back to that, and maybe once you come out with a strong log line, it's going to be right there. So it's must conflict before stakes. The before stakes is going to tell us that's the worst thing that could possibly happen, and that usually is going to be what your all is lost is brushing up against. And once you have that, then getting through the latter half of your second act becomes much easier, because you know what you're working up to.
Alright then.
Sure. I hope that works. Hope that makes sense. Let's move down to Nacho. Nacho, do you feel you have a strong sense of story structure after hearing me do probably 3,000 hours of classes?
Yeah, I feel like I have a sense of it, but I think I still get a lot out of sessions. Sometimes when people have different problems, it's kind of like maybe certain things you've already heard, but it's like at a certain point in your journey, something clicks and then you get a different understanding, or so it's I find it helpful. Even I've heard a bunch of these classes, right? But I usually find it helpful to listen.
Okay, great. Yeah, always. It's like the difference between studying car engines in school versus now you have to actually fix a bunch of problems with different engines. Yeah, just it's a different muscle flexing.
Yeah, and often someone else hearing you kind of talk through someone else's problem, sometimes it's really helpful. It's then I end up maybe encountering a similar problem or something in my project.
Great. Thanks, Nacho. Let's I'll unserve and meet Pollock. Questions about structure? I want to make sure that everyone has a good solid understanding here.
No, I'm fine with structure. Just concerned that I may not be able to follow it.
Okay, why the concern?
No idea.
Okay, well, I'm confident you'll be able to stick to it if you set your mind to it and just try your best. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to stick to what you came up with beforehand, and then you can always change it later.
Got it.
Okay, thanks, Pollock. Let's ask Taylor.
Yeah, so I think I have a decent understanding of structure. The main things that I wrote down, I have a section in my sketchbook of current issues. And I guess I wouldn't be understanding the structure, but just in general, my biggest issues are struggling with writing a compelling opening scene, and then trying not to do anything too gimmicky, you had mentioned the Breaking Bad pilot, and then my ending feels almost like too much of a cliffhanger rather than like a mix of a cliffhanger and some resolution. It very much just sets it up for further episodes.
Okay. Does it feel like the first major conflict is resolved, or like the first challenge of many is down, like, or does it feel like that first challenge has not even been surmounted yet?
It opens up a new challenge. So basically where it is that the entire pilot is this woman trying to convince her brother to, not all of it, but there one act is her trying to convince her brother to help her cheat in this poker game. He does, and it goes well. Some other things happen where she gets caught up with some people, like some bad people further on. But the final scene is so his job, their entire scam is hinging on his job being able to see the cards that people have and him being able to signal to her to continue betting or get out of the hand. The final scene is him telling her he got fired from that job, and she has now got involved with a gang of people that have basically coerced her into working for them and using this method to make them a lot of money.
Wait, did she win the game or didn't she?
No, so it's not like a tournament game.
Oh.
It's a like a poker game. You can come in and out of the game, so you could go and win a shit ton of money and leave.
Poker games don't have definite beginnings and endings?
No.
No,
Tournaments
I had no
do.
idea. Oh.
Yeah, no. So like, yeah, no. That's like tournaments. So this is what's called a cash game, where you can just come in and out. So she's playing cash games, and they're the highest stakes, or not the highest stakes, but they're pretty high. And so what happens is she wins a shit ton of money, and then she's approached by a woman who wants to celebrate her winnings with her. She goes to this woman's hotel room and basically gets jumped by Israeli mobsters who want to know why she was winning so much when they don't know who she is and have never seen her. So they're trying to figure out how she was doing this. And they kind of get the idea that she's cheating, but they back all of the players in this room. So they basically tell her, hey, if you're going to be playing in this room, which you are, you're going to be splitting half of your money with us to be playing here, but we'll back you with money. And then her brother gets fired. So now she's in this situation with these mobsters who she's kind of forced to play with, but now she can't cheat anymore because her brother got fired.
But does she know how to play poker at all without that?
Not exactly, but she's going to have to figure out pretty quick. That's kind of where I get to it with it, is that she's basically really screwed and she's going to have to learn really fast what to do.
That feels almost to me, my instinct on this is that you've kind of broken the premise that you set up a little bit to begin with, which seemed entirely contingent on her brother's going to be able to help her cheat. And that's sort of just only the story now of the first episode. Now the rest of the show is going to be this woman needs to learn how to play poker to satisfy these mobsters that we only met at the end of the first episode. Is that right?
I would say that they come in around the midpoint. That's where it kind of gets introduced, and then the entire fourth act is them in a hotel suite, threatening her, trying to figure out how she is doing this. And the ending was really, that can be changed up with him getting fired. I just thought it was a cliffhanger that really leaves it on a strong note, but I can definitely see how it betrays the entire premise.
Yeah, it just seems like moving forward it wouldn't be the same show to me, or the logline, the series logline that you gave us no longer would be what she's able to even do, because it's now not about a lady cheating at poker to rise through the ranks of, you know, like, I was going to say underground poker, but it's not really underground. It's like she's rising through the ranks of the mob-infested poker scene, I guess is what we're saying, right? Using this tactic that she has, it's obviously going to be a little suspicious if your family member is the one running the live streams. There's a bit of a link there, but in any case, that seems to me like the tactic that she would primarily use. But if she now, moving forward, is not going to be able to do that anymore, then it seems like your whole series logline would change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. The other idea I had was basically I wanted it to end with something like the original idea that I had was her coming in and he seems really down and she asks what's wrong, and he basically tells her he's being moved. They're moving to doing an extremely high stakes poker game. The one that they're currently playing is like people have like $5,000 on the table. The next one that he's getting moved to is like $100,000 on the table. So that was my other idea, was him getting moved into a different area. And then it kind of warped into this him getting fired idea. But definitely going to play around with that more.
How much does she need?
She needs $400,000 to be able to get this lawyer on retainer. So right now, what she's making, like that I've kind of outlined, is like in a day she can probably make about like $10,000 at this current poker room that she's at.
So do you want my recommendation for what to do with this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so my thought is you're saying poker games don't have a definitive beginning and ending, so it's going to be, you need to have some other metric for us to understand that she's accomplished her goal for this episode. That's like us saying the first chapter of this has closed. And so what I would recommend for you is find a limit, a money limit that she's like, okay, that's all we're going to win, because otherwise if we kept going beyond that, it would be too suspicious, right? And I'm not like a criminal, right? I'm just doing this to just boost my income a little bit. So I'm going to set an arbitrary limit, and then I'm going to definitely stop. 100% we stop, we're out after that. Me and my brother, we're both out. That's all we need to do is make, 50 grand, something like that. Just make it like, an achievable amount, but that makes sense, that any more than that would start to draw attention, right? And then your cliffhanger at the end of the episode is the brother's like, okay, well, we did our thing. Congratulations. We didn't get caught. We didn't die. Good work. Glad to be done with that. Anyway, I'm going to go work the more high stakes table. You didn't want to keep going, did you? You know what I mean? And then that last moment becomes, I think we need to go all in. It's sort of, we're moving from the safety zone where we're like, okay, we've drawn the line. We've accomplished our goal of making this much, but now I want more. I think that's your show.
Awesome. That's great. I am writing all that down now.
Yeah, you don't have
Thank
to
you very much.
you don't have to use exactly that, but that to me just, you're going to have to draw an arbitrary finish line, because there isn't one presented by just that she's won the game. It doesn't seem like you don't really win this kind of poker game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to pick a target number for her to achieve, probably. And that just makes sense to me as like, if she sets that as the threshold for, I'm not like what we want to do with the end of the show is we say, now your character is going to go on a journey, right? And so if you set up, you give her as much resistance as possible towards that line of, well, I'm not a criminal, though. I don't do crime stuff. This is a temporary thing that I only use for this. And then at the end of the show, she has to intentionally violate that. She has to be the one to step over that line. That's her saying, wait, I think I might be a criminal because maybe I'm kind of good at this. That's where the fun of your premise, to me, is derived from. But I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely helped a ton. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, so everyone says they have a good understanding of structure, which is great. No one has any other questions about any particular points of structure, which I'd be glad to get into if you guys wanted to know now, because this is so foundational, so important just to understand how this works, and to know this like the back of your hand. I mean, ideally, I would be able to ask anyone, hey, what's your favorite movie? What's the midpoint? And you just know right away. It's okay if you can't automatically do that. But try to get to the point where, I don't know, you're so familiar with this, you're watching movies and you can just very effortlessly have the script printed out and just write down, oh, hey, that was or just have a notebook and say, okay, Break Into 2 was on minute 23. That must be around, page 23 in the script. Or you can, while reading the scripts, write down on the script exactly where each plot beat is occurring. I really recommend doing that if you feel you have any kind of uncertainty about any of these beats or what it looks like, or where it can be found, or what the purpose is. When you start reading for these things, they will become much more obvious. You will be able to very clearly see where these moments are happening. The really big ones to hit in TV writing are act breaks, which are act breaks have to be propulsive. They have to carry us through the show, or else your show's dead. If it feels like we get to an act break and the ending is just sort of like, anyway, that's all for now. We'll see you after the commercial. We'll be like, what? That's it? You need to give us something that makes us go, oh my god, I gotta turn the page now. That's so vital for TV. Okay, so I probably won't go way too into the common structure weaknesses here. I will just point your attention towards one, the flat, talky opening. This is why I made you give so many examples today of different cold opens that would be striking that sort of note that you're trying to reach with the rest of your show. Whatever that emotional note or that emotional appeal is, make sure that your opening scene is that. So it needs to be exciting in that way. There's exceptions to this occasionally, where you'll find, like, I don't know, maybe some action-packed show starts with a really quiet opening. Those do work sometimes. But typically you want to give people some promise as to what is to come. And what that's going to mean is a little standalone scene of some kind that draws our interest, draws our attention, makes us go, I wonder why that happened, or I wonder why that guy did that, or something like that. I wonder what's going on here might be a fine question to ask in some certain types of opening. Why don't you guys tell me about the opening scene of a show you really like, and tell me why it works and what happens in it? And try to talk in these terms that we've been using, like, if you can as well, like, try to say, what questions is it asking? What promises is it making? Things like that. Anybody watch Severance? Go ahead, Taylor.
Yeah, so I'd mentioned Lost has a lot of these. Lost, specifically, there's one. They do a lot of really cool stuff with backstories, and there's one that's really good with a reveal, where you see people in their houses. They're having like a book club meeting, and it's pretty like a really normal scene, and then I think somebody runs into the room, tells them some shit's going down. Everybody runs out, and you realize you're on the island, and these people are the others, and they're watching the plane crash.
Right.
That originally strands everybody.
This was season 4 opening, I think. See the first episode of season 4, I believe. Or maybe 3. I think 3 starts with Jack in captivity with Juliet, though. Getting ready to do surgery on Ben. But regardless, I watched this when I was in, like, 8th grade. So this was, like, a little while ago. In any case, let's think of the pilot, though. How does the pilot open? First shot is Jack's eye opening, right? Just our very first thing is we see, here's the main character. The show is about this guy. And then what happens in the first couple minutes of the show? Jack wakes up, and what's going on around him?
Just shit's going down. The plane's crashed. People are running around screaming. The engine blows up on the plane. It just really, it starts off calm for about 30 seconds when he opens his eye. The dog licks him. He gets up, and then there's kind of like a reveal where he opens up like the jungle, like the trees, and then you just see everything on the beach. Yeah.
So start with, here's the main character. He wakes up. Here's the setting. Deserted island. I wonder how this guy got here. I wonder what's going on here. Then we turn around and we see there's a plane smashed on the beach. And what does Jack try to do in the opening scene? What's his goal?
There's some good character work. He tries to save everybody he can.
Tries to save people. And why is that?
One, he's a doctor, and two, that's one of the major themes of him throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
Is him trying to save people.
Yeah, because he's a doctor, and he jumps to a position of leadership, because that's just who he is as a person. Partially because he is that very authoritative doctor archetype, and also, and obviously his skills make him one of the most valuable people on the island. But also just, he's the protagonist. He gets active right away. Immediately we start with, who is this show and scene about? Jack. What is his goal or objective? What does he want? Well, to save people. What's standing in the way? The various challenges of a plane crash, including a guy getting sucked into a jet engine, people drowning, people, chopped in half by airplane chunks. That's what's standing in the way that he must attempt various tactics to overcome. And I would say he succeeds. He saves a few people, but can't save everybody. And we end this sequence with understanding, oh crap, this is the show that we're in for. People are going to be in mortal danger in the show. Jack is going to be the leader of this group. He's going to jump towards that position of trying to help people and save people. This is the protagonist. This is whose story we're following, and this is why you'll root for him. That's a lot to do in a cold open, right? But sort of, when you watch it, it feels easy. It's just like, no, a doctor wakes up after a plane crash and tries to save people. It's like the most natural thing ever. But you have to carefully place all that. You have to layer each of those things into the story, or else it's just not going to be there. You have to be paying attention to these things, and all of the promises that you're making, the things that you're telling us, and the information that you're revealing, the world building that you're doing in these opening couple pages is so important. Okay, so I guess we can look at my story beats. I want everyone to start on this today. So let's just open the Knave. I think I have the... Is this just the cards? Yeah, this might be just the cards. Let me see if I have the story beats. I think they're in the sketchbook. Okay, so I had a couple potential versions of this at first. Here we go. Okay, so story beats just can look like this. You have just a series of bullet points. You fill them out with just the major events as you see them for the story. Each bullet point should be a scene, so we understand a scene is on average 2-ish pages long. So make sure that, you might have some one-page scenes, you might have some slightly longer, slightly shorter, but in a half-hour show, it's going to be like 5, 6 scenes per act. In an hour-long show, it might be like 7 or 8 scenes per act, but not much more than that. So it's helpful sometimes if you just write out the bullet points themselves. Just mark them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you're like, okay, now I have to fill in the blanks here. It just feels much more manageable like this, I find. And try to include the major stuff. I mean, you have the logline, ideally, which is well constructed enough so that you have some of the major pieces to drag into place. So you're going to drag in whatever you have, and then you're going to try to connect them forward and backwards with stuff that is, of course, you may have to write in the structural beats if you just aren't sure exactly what you're building to, but you can write things down. You can write down where the midpoint is. You can write down where the act breaks are. Oh, sorry, that's already on here. But you can write down where these are the premise scenes. If that's helpful for you, it would be like the first 3 bullet points in Act 2. Maybe you'd want to highlight or label. But in any case, you don't have to really worry way too much about the specifics of the scene craft right now. We just have to kind of get the major stuff down, and you worry exactly about how it's going to connect later. And also, you can have some spaces missing if you just aren't sure yet. Okay, any questions on story beats, or what they look like, or how to write them out? Oh, a little too bright. There we go. No questions? Okay, seems like none. So that's what you'll be working on this whole week. I think that I could go into things like blockbuster moments a little bit, but all this essentially means is you're trying to come up with awesome premise scenes, and not only premise scenes, but also these should just be the kind of big moments of your episode that would be in the trailer. This is, if it's an action adventure show, the big stunts, the big escapes, the big fights. If this is a comedy, the big comedic set pieces, very funny party scene, the very funny, boardroom meeting scene, things like that. And you're going to just come up with a list of these. It doesn't matter if they're all going to fit into the show or not, but if you find good spots in the story beats to slot them in, then definitely do. And blockbuster scenes can be kind of anywhere, but probably there's going to be a couple in the premise scenes. Probably there's going to be one in the finale. Probably there's going to be one kind of wherever you want. In the opening scenes, they're very infrequently blockbuster moments. And by blockbuster moments, I'm meaning areas or scenes of increased importance and intensity and higher stakes, and also just a kind of visual component to them is a big part of this. It doesn't always have to be a super visual scene. If you're writing a really well-written drama, then just a conversation can be a blockbuster moment, but you have to be really, really good at dialogue to do that. If you're writing Mad Men, then all of your blockbuster moments are going to be these, talking scenes. But usually we're going to look at moments that will have some kind of visual thing, even if it's in a drama. Just remember the Forrest Gump, the scene where he learns that he can use his legs. He's running, the girl goes, "Run, Forrest, run," and he breaks out of the casts. It's such a blockbuster moment, right? Or think of all these moments in dramas or romance movies where people are out yelling at each other in the rain, declaring their love for each other. Those are blockbuster moments for those genres. So be coming up with just like 3 to 5 of these really cool moments with this cool visuals or cool settings, or just things that will be memorable and really move the story forward and be these big important moments that are going to kind of stick with people after they've watched it. And you can slot them in wherever you want, but premise scenes and finale should definitely have some. Okay, so that's just kind of basically what blockbuster moments are. I hope everyone at this point understands how to break their story, which is figuring out what happens in each section. Super well constructed logline will give you those major pieces on your board that you will then connect backwards and forwards using these rules of structure as you understand them to fill out each of those moments and just, create the whole skeletal roadmap for your entire episode. All right, I would rather... So we're pretty much through the slideshow material for today. The goal for next time is to turn in the story beat summary, and of course to read a complete brand new it doesn't have to be brand new to you, professional pilot script that you will come ready to say what you learned, liked, and noticed in whatever way. It's not a quiz, just anything at all. You must be reading to be participating and to be improving as a writer. Okay, so next time we will ask that every single time, so get used to that question. What did you read this week? And have an answer. Also, you're going to keep filling out that sketchbook, and there's never a point where the sketchbook is really done. So keep writing that out. Keep adding as much stuff as you want to that, and you can work on your early versions of your story beats in the sketchbook until you're ready to copy and paste them to a brand new document, which should be like a cleaned up version of it. Okay, questions on anything we talked about, or if there aren't any, or once we ask that, I'll move into just asking what story problems are you guys having that we can try to work to address right now, or maybe things that, like, problems you're encountering in your own scripts. I want to get you unstuck, whatever that sort of requires. So let me start with just questions on anything we've talked about today. Structure, Act 2, and breaking the story. Okay, no questions. So in that case, let's open the floor to what story problems do you guys have, or what is making you stuck that we can unresolve today? Unresolve.
Hello.
Resolve. Hello.
Hey, there's actually a plot beat in my story that I feel is a bit rushed. Like, I didn't think that the characters had time to introduce themselves, integrate themselves with the audience when this plot beat just suddenly appears.
Okay. Any other info you can give us, or how can we help?
Basically, the plot beat is that one of the aliens comes into a tournament disguised as a knight and challenges one of their strongest knights to combat.
Okay.
And I think I put it too soon because I don't think people know the characters yet. Like, it's barely. I'm on the 5th page, and the 5th page is when the knight appears. I don't think that's good enough.
Are you saying it's a mystery as to the knight's identity? Is that like sort of like the people don't know who he is?
Yeah, the people don't know who he is. He comes in, challenges the strongest knight, and possibly defeats them, and then just leaves.
Okay, why? What's his goal?
He's testing the strength of the people there.
Okay. So his goal is find out if we can beat these people in combat. He figures out the answer is yes, we can, and then he leaves afterwards. Okay. I mean, if you feel it's too much information to dump on the audience about the aliens right away, why don't you just leave it a mystery as to, like, who was that guy? Where did he come from? That could be, like, one of the reasons we keep watching.
That's not the problem.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
The problem is that I think the characters that were introduced there's no investment in them yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, should I, like, extend their scenes so that they're much more, so people know about them more, or should I just go straight into the Purple Knight?
It's hard to say.
I'm calling him.
What role do your characters play in that sequence? Are they the ones jousting? Or who are your main characters?
There's a knight called Sir Edgar, and there's a princess.
Okay.
Princess is just observing, being bored, and the Sir Edgar is the knight jousting.
Oh, okay. So, I think that it, if we, like, if that's in the first couple pages of your script, and that's like the normal world for them, if he's a knight that does jousting all the time, then you can introduce the character with this sequence. You don't have to add in a bunch of normal day-to-day kind of chores and stuff before we get to there, if that's what you're wondering. Like, this would be it seems to me that introducing a character that is a knight with a jousting sequence makes sense. That might just work on its own.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I just feel it's too rushed.
Okay, if it's too rushed, maybe you could just move that scene to later in the show. Maybe that could be something in the second act rather than the first.
No, I still want the inciting incident in the first act.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the inciting incident?
Well, the inciting incident is the Purple Knight. No, actually, no. The inciting incident is the alien invasion. Though I don't know how to go about the alien invasion.
It
yet.
Sounds like they've already invaded if they're riding around challenging people to jousting. Is that not the case? You wanted to see them actually land or something like that?
I wanted to see them actually invade, not
Okay.
just challenge people to knightlyhood.
Okay, well then in that case
Yeah.
you definitely have to put that scene later if the aliens need to show up before they can actually do that. So you're going to have to decide in what manner do they invade?
Mm.
You don't have to have all the answers now,
Yeah.
but these are just the questions that we would ask, and of course having a really strong logline to begin with will help just sort of figure out the basics of where some of these plot moments should go.
Okay.
Do you have a logline you want to get feedback on?
Oh yeah, I had a log line. Well, I had one.
What
Hold
happened?
up.
You can feel free to share if you want.
I am sharing it right now.
Okay. Or I can come back to you if you need some time to find it or to paste it in.
I know I'm typing it out right now.
Oh, you're typing it out.
Yeah.
So while we're doing this, I would everyone else just be thinking of what problems am I having, what am I struggling with or not understanding, or what will get me unstuck from whatever stage I'm on. Okay. Go ahead.
When aliens invade, a jaded lady and a smitten knight must fight their way out to warn the rest of the kingdom.
All right. So when you say fight their way out of what?
Out of the castle, I think.
Out of a castle. Okay, so the castle is going to fall sort of under siege, and they're going to get surrounded, and this is like an outpost or something, so that the aliens need to take this before they can move on to the kingdom. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so you'll need to establish and set that stuff up in your first act, and that would just be something we would solve in the outlining portion. So you're going to let us know, first, your opening scene should set some kind of promise as to what we're getting into. The fact that this is going to be a medieval world with aliens in it. That's a cool mix of tones, but just your opening scene might give us some little clue as to what's coming. And then you're going to want to set up the importance of this outpost. Maybe it's between two cliffs or something, like in 300, where it's like, that unless the enemy takes this castle, then they're not going to be able to take the rest of the kingdom. You have to set that up for us. And then...
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, is the aliens destroying a church, is that a good cold opening?
Sure. Yeah, I could see that. You mean destroying it with like a big laser beam or something like that? Or how are they destroying it?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, no, I could see that. That could work well. It could be kind of creepy if you play it right, or, maybe we don't exactly know it's aliens. Maybe it could be unclear what exactly is responsible for it. You could use that to build a little mystery or to keep people watching to learn the answer of, what just happened here.
Yeah.
Because if a church gets destroyed, people are going to assume this was demons, aren't they?
Yes, actually.
Right. So having the characters work under the assumption that it is demons or the work of Satan would be an interesting way to handle the first act.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if I answered the question that you were having, but I hope that you feel that's given you some ideas and maybe some ways to get unstuck.
Okay.
Any other questions or things that you wanted to resolve?
Not really.
Okay. Thanks for volunteering. Anyone else? This is a time. You have 40 minutes here to get story problems worked out and resolved, so I would recommend using it. If not, we can just call the class and I'll go get to make my pasta early. And that will be lovely. So, story problems. What have you guys got?
I think so. One of the main problems I'm seeing in my story is, so she has her brother. She has a very solid motivation to be doing this thing. The motivation for the brother I've kind of put to the side, and I guess, you know, like, it's not the strongest motivation. Right now it's him helping out his sister and his niece. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. The other things that I'm thinking of are like introducing him having his own debts to pay off, or him needing money to further himself, like his passions. He's been stuck in this like job for a long time, working in like TV production. There's probably not getting any promotions soon. And so he's kind of looking at starting his own business. That's another motivation I've come up with. But as of right now, I'm just kind of stuck on him having no really solid motivation.
Why don't you pick a darker motivation? Like, he's a recovered gambling addict, and the fact that he's getting involved in this is actually starting to reactivate that side of him, and she sort of plays into that and uses that a little bit against him to draw him in and sort of make him sort of think, wait a minute, we're a really good team at this. We could get more. Maybe if you pick something like that, it could sort of be something that not only is going to motivate him. Oh, he's trying to build a new house. He's trying to start a business. Okay. But if it's something that's going to create more conflict as well as motivate him, maybe that's a better way to sort of start thinking in this genre.
Awesome. Yeah, more motivation that introduces more conflict.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Or you mentioned maybe debts. If he has debt of his own to pay off. I mean, having debt that they both need to pay off, it feels a little bit matchy, samey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless the scale or type of debt is radically different. Whereas, like, he has people trying to hurt him to get the money back, where it's like she just needs to she needs to pay off the legal fees or something like that. That would maybe be at two very different scales or intensities, but I would make it something maybe a little more intense than just a money goal he's trying to reach to fulfill an interest of his or something. I would pick something a little more urgent than that.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Sure. I know that's not maybe an answer, but I hope at least that gives you some...
Definitely gave me some ideas and moving in the right direction.
Sure. Or, I mean, yeah, it could be as dark as you want. It just sounds like, unless you're doing a comedic, is this like a comedic caper kind of show, or is this a serious crime drama, right?
Yes, really serious crime drama.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he's a recovering addict and he needs money for drugs. You know, you can pick anything.
Awesome.
I wouldn't necessarily make it something that's going to introduce a whole new plot thread. Wait, are you doing full hour or half hour?
Full hour.
Oh, you are doing full hour. Maybe you can then. In that case, maybe it could be that he has some other entirely separate goal. You know, my child has been human trafficked and I'm trying to track them down. Something like that. I need money to fund that. Or, you know, like, it could be something that could just lead... In an hour-long show, you have more room to say he's going to have his own whole kind of track that he's following in the later episodes. So, but it's going to make it trickier to structure the first one, because you're going to have to give us a whole example of this is his problem for this episode, and this is how he overcomes or doesn't overcome that. And you're going to have to track them sort of separately, balancing it a little more like a two-hander. But in any case, what I would probably well, yeah, you'll just have to make some choices on how much you want to open up the conflict and broaden the scope beyond just your main character. But if you were thinking he would have his own whole storylines and stuff, then this would be a good opportunity to showcase one of those and give us an example of that in the first episode.
Cool. Yeah. I'm definitely writing it with the intention that the brother does have his own storylines and issues. So introducing something like that early on, I think it could work kind of where I'm at in this outline. I'll see if it can appropriately fit in there somewhere.
Like maybe he has some motivation that he's actually hiding from her. Like, and he tells her, "Oh yeah, I'll go ahead with this for now, but I'm not a criminal. It's just to start my community center or something like that." But really, he's up to his neck in deadly debt that he has to hide from her, or feels the need to hide from her, or something like that. Look for a motivation that also is a point of conflict that will keep coming up between them.
Awesome. Cool.
Sure. Anyone else? Other story problems, story questions? Last call. Go ahead.
Where I think I have too many subplots and too many, and so I'm really struggling to figure out A, at what point should they come in the story, and B, should I just leave some of them to the series, assuming it gets made, yeah.
Probably yes, yeah. So if it's, well, hang on, let me just ask, how many subplots do you have? More than 2, 3?
Yeah.
5?
Good question. I would say 4 or 5, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you probably have to cut 2 of those. So I would try to keep it to A, B, and C story. Wait, is this hour long or half hour?
Hour.
It's hour, okay. Even so, like, even a D is pushing it. A D story would be like something really small. It's something we call a runner sometimes, which is like a little tiny story that keeps coming back up through the episode. Sometimes it's like a running joke or something like that. But I would, trim at least one of those entirely out. I would just save it for the theoretical remainder of the series. You need to focus in on your A story is going to be your main character and the most important conflict that's at the very heart of the show. Sort of like without this conflict in place, the whole show would fall apart or would not work. So that's like the level of importance. So let's look at Stranger Things because your show is sort of like that. So the A story is going to be Mike and 11, right? Mike takes in this girl, 11, that he's going to use to help try to get his friend back. That's the A story of Stranger Things season 1. Would you say that's right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the A story. And then think of your B story might be the central relationship. So if Mike and his friendship, friendship to romance with 11 and getting his friend back is going to be the A story. Well, 11 trying to escape from the institute that is after them, that's pretty much your B story. Or maybe we could say the B, I'm not exactly, it's been a year since I've seen it, so I couldn't exactly tell you, but maybe I feel like the B story could be, what's her name? Winona Ryder's character trying to get her kid back, right? That's sort of like maybe that's the C. I can't exactly remember, and then maybe we have one more with Hopper. And that's kind of like your main characters for the show. We don't need a D story with Lucas. We don't need an F story with, I don't even remember the other friend's name. But we've narrowed it down to, you kind of have to identify who are the most important people in the story. And then you're going to define each of those subplots by this is this person's, conflict in this episode. This is this person's conflict. This is this. And so it's probably going to be main character, central relationship, and villain.
Okay.
So if you can, that's not going to be one size fits all. That may not work.
Yeah, I was thinking that because my villains too. Well, I have kind of 2 villains, and this is a problem. So we have what I think is the inciting incident where 4 teenage girls are pushed in front of a train, and so that villain is the ominous figure, who is instrumental to the story happening, is not the main antagonist because they're so unknown and so and that will come later in the series. And then there's MI13, who are like this government intelligence agency, who I don't know if I've told you the story or not, So they've got extraterrestrial pearls for teenagers, and MI13 believe they are a dangerous threat, these pearls, and so they want to destroy them. But destroying them would mean that the teenagers die, because the pearls are bonded to the teenagers. So there's that story. So MI13 are the villains there as well. And then there's other subplots, like the PTSD that one of them will suffer, and their mental health was already bad, and then there's just lots of different strands and plots that I need to try and figure out where to weave into the story.
So does your group have a leader? Is there like a main kid who sort of is the leader of that clique?
I wouldn't say it's Jay. He's not actually one of the ones who got run over, but sort of comes in to help them like rehabilitate. I'm not sure how I want to show that rehabilitation process, because it's important that I show it, but it really slows down the whole pilot. And
That's your main character?
yeah.
Your main character is not one of the people going through the magical transformation?
He also has a pearl, sorry, yeah. He's
he
got
does.
a pearl as well, but he doesn't get run over by the train.
Isn't that how they get the powers?
No.
No. Okay. That's okay. I guess I don't need to know that.
And that's another thing. So it's almost like there's two insights and incidents, or two, which is the problem as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is a problem. I would try to connect those two events if you can. Maybe say, is the train derailment caused by the thing that gives the first guy his powers, or is it the other way around? The train derailment causes the thing that gives that guy his powers too? Is there a way that you can weave those together?
I mean, at the moment, they're not connected anymore. Then the 4 teenagers should have died, but they were saved. But they're still alive because they had the pearls, which kept them alive.
Oh, so the train crash was not the inciting incident at all. It's just a coincidence that occurs to them once they get their powers, right?
Yeah.
So what is the inciting
I
incident?
guess so.
So you don't have to have all the answers right now. That's just like a really fun fundamental question.
I want to do this because I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Okay.
And yeah, because I've spoken about this with Nacho, and yeah, it feels like I've got too many storylines, and yeah, that's why I'm trying to talk it out loud so I can figure out which one sounds best.
Sure. Well, yeah, now's the time.
Yeah.
I mean, or now is a time, or lab tomorrow is always a fine time too. But that might be a little later for you in the day. Or actually, it's not much later than right now. What time is it for you right now? It must be like early morning, right?
It is. It is. 2:30 in the morning.
You're a bit of an insomniac, aren't you?
I am. I sleep in the morning.
I see.
But yeah.
I understand. Okay, so I would, in terms of your show, the logline will help us because the logline would tell us when X happens, an adjective protagonist must conflict before stakes. And when X happens sounds like when these kids get magic powers. Is that right?
Yeah. Hang on, let me pull up my logline.
Okay.
I have it here.
And so before you know almost anything else, you'll have to know just how that occurs. How do they get the powers? And that's a scene we almost certainly want to see.
I'll give you my series on my pilot log 9.
Okay. Also, a good question to answer would be, what exactly do the powers do? But maybe you have a good answer for that already.
Oh yeah, so each power gives them different powers.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. A group of disabled teenagers are manipulated. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no.
Okay.
That was a side note.
A group of disabled teenagers are manipulated into running an international intelligence and emergency service using extraterrestrial pearls that allow them to harness unbelievable power. Okay. Pilot logline: when a train accident causes 4 teenage girls to suffer life-changing injuries, they become the targets of the highly secretive MI13, who are determined to hire them as spies because they possess powerful and potentially dangerous pearls of extraterrestrial origin. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand the cause and effect. Is it the train accident that causes them to become the targets of this agency? Why is that?
No. That's because that's what makes them disabled, and the fact it's important that they're disabled for the plot, so that's why that bit's there. Although actually, that's a good point. It probably doesn't need to be in the log line.
Might not need to be, unless it's something like after surviving an impossible train accident, this is what gets the attention of MI13. Like Unbreakable, basically, this is the plot of Unbreakable.
No, that's not what happens.
Oh, okay.
Because they were already, MI13 had converged on them at the train station, and then before they reach the girls, this train accident happens. So yeah, that's not what happened. Yeah, maybe I just need to remove the train incident completely.
It may not be particularly relevant for the logline if it doesn't have that cause and effect. It's not what's actually inciting the story. It's not what's catalyzing the story.
Yeah.
So you may need to find that thing. It's like when they blank and get superpowers, it draws the attention of this group that they now need to fight to escape. So you might just need to kind of do some thinking on how specifically do they get the powers? What is that scene like? What needs to happen?
Okay.
Does that give you some stuff to think about for now, or did you have more that we could... I mean, I'm glad to take more questions or something like that, but it feels like that's some really super fundamental kind of stuff that it's going to be tough to work out the rest of it until you know just those basics. What starts the story?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I've got over halfway through the story, but I'm still gonna have to restructure a lot of it because I've I've got things in the wrong place. I feel like, and I don't have like an all is lost moment. And if I do, actually, it might be. Wait, in a 60-page pilot, where would you put your all is lost?
60-page? Well, I think it's gonna be... Hang on. So, like, here I have it as, like, 42. It might be more like 45. And in some structures...
that works perfectly.
Oh, that works for you? Okay,
That's
great.
where mine is. Yeah.
Sure. I think that seems good then. And then your Pit of Despair is going to lead us up to your act break. And then the break into 5 is basically going to be the resolution of that cliffhanger. So, the cliffhanger is like a moment that asks, is your character ready to change? Are they ready to become this new version of themselves? Are they ready to step through this threshold and realize the truth that they've been ignoring up until now? And then after the commercial break, we usually see they're going to prove that, yes, they have made that first change.
Cool.
All right.
Thank
Any
you.
questions left? I know that's a lot to chew on, but I hope that's helpful for now. Anything else that you wanted to look at?
No, I don't think so. I'll rewatch this later because it's helpful in the morning, so I didn't
Sure.
get everything.
Okay, no problem. The slides are also in the chat if you want to review those.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Joel. Other story questions, story problems, or things to get you guys unstuck? Going once. Alright, going final time. Sold. Alright, so we're going to end here for today. We have lab tomorrow if you guys want to do more work or have more questions. Bring up to 5 pages of anything you're working on for feedback. Your homework for next time is to write your story beats in their entirety, make it look really nice and neat and organized, and create that really, really good roadmap for moving ahead. Even if everything isn't finished yet, there can be gaps in it, there can be question marks. Not everything has to be perfect. And also read a proscript by next week and be ready to talk about it. You should be reading 3 proscripts a week. I will accept 1, but try to read more than that. You can read pilots, you can read features, you can read plays and books, whatever it is. Try to also be reading pilots, obviously, for this course. Anyway, that's going to be all for today. We have tomorrow from 12 to 2, we have Novel Bootcamp, and then we have plenty of other classes coming up that we mentioned before. I'll just leave this up for a second before we go, but this is all the free things happening on May 7th, week 1 of Feature Bootcamp, writing sci-fi at 1 p.m. and copyright at 5 p.m. 3 classes in one day. That's got to be a new record. All right. Thanks so much for coming by, guys. We'll see you soon at your next script camp, class, or event.